Y'all know what? I'm going to give Stone Cold Steve Austin his props because these Broken Skull sessions really open your eyes to a lot, especially for me on today's show, why Randy Orton is the greatest of all time.
No, baby, that's for somebody else. We're just gonna keep you right where you at right now.
It doesn't matter what you think.
The Wrestling Realm presents Break It Down with Brian H.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode of Break It Down with Brian H. Keeping it 100. I'm your host, Brian H. Waters. This show, of course, brought to you by the Wrestling Realm. If you haven't done so, you know what to do. Go ahead, hit the subscribe button, and turn on the bell notifications as the Wrestling Realm is back and in full swing. So make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss an episode. Folks, I'm going to have a cool show today. I got 3 reasons why Randy Orton is the WWE's greatest of all time. But before I get to that, just want to remind you that you can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/the Wrestling Realm. And see, I made a boo-boo on that graphic, so I'll put that one up. Make sure you do that. Shout out to the people. Shout out to Cody, who is a monthly supporter who, you know, every month he has made his contribution to this show. So you could be a monthly supporter, you could be a one-time supporter. Shout out to Dr. D. Shout out to Christina. Shout out to my sister Megan. Everybody who is supporting the show. Now, folks, you know, I was sitting here thinking, and I was watching this Stone Cold Steve Austin's Broken Skull sessions. And I thought about it. I said, you know what? Randy Orton is the greatest of all time. Now, everybody always puts Shawn Michaels. He's the most popular, right? You do have some people who say Hulk Hogan. You got some people who say John Cena, Bruno Sammartino, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock. But when you look at like the majority of the list, especially WWE, right? Vince McMahon, because obviously he signed off on it, right? And I'm talking about the 50 Greatest Superstars DVD. Vince McMahon had signed off, and this is what I'm assuming, he had to sign off, right? Because he signed off on everything. We signed off on the greatest of all time being the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. And I thought about that, and I said, well, most people say Shawn Michaels because, you know, they looked at what he did, right? He carried the company through tumultuous times, stayed with them. He was loyal to Vince McMahon, but he was a great in-ring competitor, always knew where he was in the ring, right? He was an in-ring general. And then he had a drastic back injury, was out for 4 years, 5 years. And then he comes back, and Triple H even said their match at SummerSlam, their return match, it was as if Shawn Michaels never lost a beat. And we saw that second run. And you can make an argument that the second run was even better than the first run. No, he didn't have world championships. He only had 1 world championship, but he was a top guy. Main eventing 2 WrestleManias technically main eventing 3 WrestleManias in the process. And I mean closing the show, but still in the show, you can make the argument he became Mr. WrestleMania doing this because you look at the first one, right? He had the best match at WrestleMania 11, WrestleMania 12. WrestleMania 14, you can make an argument. If you think him and Austin, I know people don't think it was such a great match. Even though I watched it, I said, you know what? Considering what it was, that was a good match. But then he comes back, and I mean, you know, WrestleMania 19, him and Jericho. His first WrestleMania back, he still show. WrestleMania 20, the triple threat match, the main event. WrestleMania 21, Kurt Angle. People say that's the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. And that was when he called himself Mr. WrestleMania for the first time. 22, I can't even remember. Him and Vince McMahon. Wow, him and Vince. But, you know, 23 with John Cena, 24 Ric Flair, 25 and 26 with The Undertaker. So that's Shawn Michaels, right? But you look at things and people evolve, companies evolve, and things evolve. And I thought about it and I said, you know what? It's now, we got to give Randy Orton his props. I'm gonna take you to a clip from. Remember, I told y'all the Wrestling Realm is back. We got a podcast called Wrestling Realm Now, and right after the WWE's Fastlane, myself and my brother, the real Dwayne Allen, had a conversation, and on this we discussed Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt, aka the Fiend, and their battles. I'm gonna take you to the list because this is exactly where I got this from.
This one, because I love everybody.
Oh
But
boy.
it's the fan base itself. I hate the fact that we do not give wrestlers their flowers while they can still smell them. And I'm not talking about them dying. How freaking good is Randy Keith Orton? There's nobody else who could have pulled this off the way that he has. For a guy that's an untrained, he's not a trained actor. You know what I mean? But he's just a veteran of this game. He's a sports entertainer. That he has just played this whole. This is probably one of the least few long and drawn out stories and beefs that we have gotten that I have not gotten tired of, because they just found a way to keep pushing it along, making it make sense. In between his beef with the Fiend, we knew it was always lurking somewhere behind him. He's had a WWE Championship match. He's been in the mix and all that stuff, and it's just like, man, he is really, really good. It was exactly what I expected it to be. I knew the Fiend was going to return because, like I said, it's setting up for what this is supposed to be at WrestleMania. And like I said, WrestleMania will be the climax of the story. I don't know where the story is going to go. I don't know if it's going to continue, but like I said, there's so many loose ends to tie up. Man, I mean, it's something you don't get in today's wrestling a lot, so I can appreciate it. People, it's dumb, I don't get it. I don't want to see it. I don't care.
So, one of the things he brought up too on the show, you go back and look at it. A lot of the stuff he did, if he was doing it AEW, everybody would be saying, "Oh man, he's the greatest of all time." But it's the thing, we have taken him for granted. So I got 3 reasons, right? And I'm gonna go from, I wrote this, I took notes, and I think the real Dwayne Allen would be happy. I actually put these on paper, as opposed to last time I told them they was on the phone. But I took notes. So adaptability and / I'm gonna put adaptability and moving the product forward. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is Randy Orton has been putting people over, getting the next guy ready, making people. He talked about this with Austin. He had people put him over. Now, there is that issue with Kofi Kingston. I recognize that. But you also have to look at that was a younger, less mature Randy Orton. But, he's saying, he's looking forward to the days to be able to sit with guys and tell them, about what it's like. Tell them how to help them get over. You look at a guy like Jinder Mahal. Jinder Mahal was WWE champion, beating Randy Orton. That right there was huge. He became the 50th WWE champion, a guy who was just at one point dancing around doing a 3-man band in an air guitar band. And then he would beat Randy Orton. But Randy Orton had to help get him over. You look at Kofi Kingston years later, the story wrote itself. And a lot of us thought, oh man, Randy is going to bury him, whatever. But Randy put him over. Now the first one was a, funky finish. And then the next time they had the match and Kofi got the pin, the 1, 2, 3. And that right there was important. So you look at him moving the business forward, getting people to understand, this is where he want to be, right? He wants to be in the WWE. In order to do that, he understands the same way Ric Flair did. He's got to make new stars. Number 2 is crossover appeal. This guy was he was in the movies, but he's not really the biggest movie star. Well, I think you know what? Actually, they may have taken him out of the Marine, but I do believe he may have been in another one. But nonetheless, you put him on a poster, people gonna know who Randy Orton is. I mean, let's be real. We're talking about men in tights, right? Women are going to like them. Randy Orton is a guy who you put him on a poster, he looks like a wrestler. He walk around, you're like, oh, wait, who's that? Now, understanding Shawn Michaels at the time when he was the man, wasn't a time where the business wouldn't get as hot, right? Wouldn't get as hot as it was as it would get a few years later when Austin and The Rock was on top of the game. But now, and Randy Orton and John Cena are reaping the benefits of a lot that Shawn Michaels have paved the way. And Shawn Michaels, your Bret Harts, and, obviously Stone Cold and The Rock's, it sort of came down. But with those guys, like I said, the crossover appeal. Now, I've always said this too. If Randy Orton had John Cena's work ethic, meaning that almost obsessive with the WWE. I mean, he's got kids, right? He's got kids. He's got a wife. So it's other stuff. But if he had that and he wasn't phoning it in for a while, then maybe people would understand and recognize what I'm saying now. But, during, Dwayne and I always had these conversations. And he always said, if you look for a perfect he passes the airport test. So that's another reason why he, in my opinion, is the WWE's greatest superstar of all time. And the number one reason is longevity. You look at Randy Orton, he's been a top guy since 2004. Now understanding, and he said this, he recognized the fact that he had the business handed to him. When he came in, though, I remember when he made his debut before Evolution, actually around the time when he came in, it was like, oh, okay, cool, this is a wrestler. But then when he joined Evolution and you saw him walking with Triple H and Batista and Ric Flair, and you looked at that group, you saw Batista was the muscle. You saw Triple H was the current champion. You saw Ric Flair was the past. But you looked at Randy Orton and you said, he's got it. He's a 5-tool player. He would be in the championship match in 2003, and in 2004, we all know he would go ahead and win the WWE World Heavyweight. Well, at the time it was called the World Heavyweight Championship. And he even says he wasn't ready at the time. But when he won that championship, it wasn't the first of. It wouldn't be the last, as he would go on and win it 14 times, as he's tied with Triple H. He's a guy over this long period of time. When all else fails, you can throw Randy Orton in there. You look at what he's doing with The Fiend right now. That's a top program on Raw. Regardless, some people like it, some people don't. But it's a program that you look and you're like, uh-oh, what's going on, right? And like Dwayne said in the clip, how good is he? Him and Cena, that's something that you can always go back to. And I've always enjoyed their feuds. I think around the late 2010s, or I should say early 2010s, late 2000s, I was just like, oh, this again. But recognizing for what it is over the course of time, this longevity. Because we all know Cena's been there, but Randy's been there right along with him. So the longevity. And honestly, that's where he has a leg up on Austin, Rock, Shawn, Bret. A longevity is a top guy. I mean, you're talking 2004 through 2021. Randy Orton is a top guy, not only in WWE, but in the business of professional wrestling. So you put all this together, and I did a post. I wish I had the thing loaded up on here. I did a post on the Wrestling Realm. And one of the things I said was,
it's the fan base itself.
I accidentally hit that clip. I did a post on the Wrestling Realm, and I said, if you were starting your company, who would you choose? Randy Orton or Shawn Michaels? Most of the people who tuned in, they said Shawn Michaels. Randy Orton. I saw a lot of people saying, Shawn was this, but really a lot of people starting to understand. I think one of the big things is that reason why people were picking Randy was due to his he said one person shout out to Zach Fellows. Randy, he looks great, wrestles well, can do both face or heel, might have less backstage problems than Shawn did in his prime, depending on when we say Randy's prime, because he hasn't stopped in 20 years. And that right there was key. Randy Orton's still in his prime. He's still in his prime. Shawn Michaels, and that was the thing. In their prime, who would you start your company with? We most of the time, we consider Shawn Michaels' prime 96, 97, 95, 96, 97. We don't consider 02 to 08 his prime years. But, Randy, like I said, and people say, and shout out to TJ Sykes, says Shawn, not to discredit Randy whatsoever, just Shawn was well-rounded, charisma in the ring, etc. Guess what? So was Randy Orton. So was Randy Orton. Just to read off, read off a couple more. Randy wasn't much of a headache backstage. That's coming from Real Fat Wrestling. Rob Bonnet is R Bon 1. Randy, bigger guy, and that matters. So overwhelmingly, it was more people that actually chose Randy Orton. So again, that is why I say Randy Orton is the greatest of all time. Now this coming from a Daniel Bryan fan. I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't even like Randy Orton for a few years. He tweeted some stuff about people. It doesn't matter that people are dying. It's pigmentation of skin doesn't matter. Americans are getting killed. You know what? He misunderstood my tweet when I said that's upsetting. I guess the same way I misunderstood his. But then he even said it this past, like, okay, Black Lives Matter. Now, he did say, the N-word. It was with an A. It was, who knows who he was talking to. Shouldn't have said it. It was on Twitch. It sounded like it was one of those gaming moments where he was saying it like amongst the homeboys. Who knows? But, that was, reason why I didn't like him. And like I said, Daniel Bryan's my favorite superstar of all time. I think John Cena is the greatest as far as the prototypical WWE superstar. But now more and more, and that's what I used to say, but now more and more I think about it, is Randy Orton. And it's the reason why Vince goes with him. And one of the things he said in his promo was to Drew McIntyre, he said, "You were fired, but I was given chance after chance because I'm valuable to this company." Woo. Talk about a pipe bomb, ladies and gentlemen. Talk about a pipe bomb. So that's where I'm in with that. Let me know what y'all think. I want to know, who do y'all think is the greatest WWE superstar of all time? I just gave you my 3 reasons why I feel it's Randall Keith Orton. So want to remind you, go ahead, hit the follow button at Wrestling Realm on Twitter and on Instagram. It's all right there below. Make sure you like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the channels. Subscribe right here. If you're listening to on the podcast apps, give me a 5-star rating on Apple. Drop, make sure you follow on Google, Spotify, Stitcher. Until the next time, folks, I'm Brian H. Waters. So long, everybody.